My mate was secretly cheating with another she-wolf and had a 3-year-old illegitimate pup. After I suffered a miscarriage for protecting him, the alpha who treasured me like a precious gem had ordered my uterus removed. Yet he knew that our own pups were what I wanted most in this world. As I turned and walked into the corridor, passing by other wards, the TV screen was still showing the scene where Blake proposed to me. A she-wolf in the ward said enviously, "Alpha is so good to Luna Amber." I heard that Luna was injured and bleeding heavily, and Alpha drew half of his blood and transfused it to her, even at the risk of his own life. Another she-wolf nodded. "Yes, I've never seen such an affectionate alpha." And he also spent $10 million to buy Moonbloom herb to accelerate Amber's recovery. In the past, hearing such words would have made me feel like the luckiest she-wolf alive. But now, it made me sick. Just then, Blake came out from the healer's room. Blake's eyes lit up at the moment he saw me. He noticed I was barefoot in my thin hospital gown. His eyes filled with concern as he swept me up into his arms. "You're still recovering from serious injuries, Amber. What are you thinking, walking around barefoot like this? What if you catch a chill?" He carried me back to the room and personally put warm socks on my feet, just as he had done countless times before. I remembered how he'd been like this throughout our 5 years of marriage, how he would brush my hair every night before bed, how he'd prepare my favorite moonberry tea on full moon nights to ease my transformation pains, how he'd carry me across puddles on rainy days so my feet wouldn't get wet. But the tender gesture that once made my heart race now left me cold. I gently pushed his hands away. "I'm feeling better now." He sighed with relief, but I could see the worry hadn't left his eyes. How could someone be so considerate and caring to me while plotting to destroy my chance of ever having children again? More importantly, how could he look at me with such loving eyes when he had a secret son with another woman? After returning to the room, Blake made a call to the pack healer. "Dr. Nathan will be here soon to prepare you for surgery," Blake said, his tone was so soft. "He says we need to take care of your injuries properly." My blood ran cold. Surgery? The conversation I had overheard earlier flashed through my mind, Blake instructing the healer to remove my uterus during the procedure. "No," I said firmly. "I don't need surgery. I'm feeling much better already." In the past, Blake had never refused any of my requests, but this time he unusually insisted. "Little Wolf, Dr. Nathan says you've had a miscarriage and suffered severe internal injuries from the rogue attack. If we don't perform this surgery, you could have permanent damage." I said no. I pushed myself up from the bed, wincing at the pain in my abdomen. "I want to leave." Now. Blake stared at me for a long moment, his jaw clenched tight. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Fine," he finally conceded. "But I'm calling Dr. Nathan to examine you at home first thing tomorrow." Relief washed over me as Blake helped me up and supported me as we walked out of the treatment room. We had barely made it to the parking area when a sharp pain stabbed through my neck. I reached up, feeling a small dart. "Blake?" I turned to him in confusion. The last thing I saw was his pained expression as he caught me before I hit the ground. "I'm sorry, love. It's for your own good." Darkness took me. When I woke again, sunlight was streaming through the windows of our bedroom. For a moment, everything felt normal, until the dull ache in my abdomen brought reality crashing back. I threw off the covers and lifted my nightgown to find a fresh surgical scar across my lower belly. "No. No, no, no." The door opened and Blake walked in carrying a tray of food. "You're awake," he said softly, setting the tray down and rushing to my side. "How are you feeling? What did you do to me?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Blake sat beside me, his expression grave. "You collapsed in the parking lot. Nathan said your internal bleeding had worsened. The inner wall of your uterus was severely damaged from both the attack and the miscarriage. We had no choice, Amber. If we hadn't removed it, you could have died." He reached for something on the nightstand, medical reports with diagrams showing extensive damage to my reproductive system. It all looked very official, very convincing. "I couldn't lose you," Blake continued, taking my hand. "I know how much you wanted pups, but your life means everything to me." "Rest now," Blake said, kissing my forehead. "If we want children, we can always adopt a pup from another pack." I opened my mouth to speak, but the door swung open. Chloe walked in, leading a small boy of about 3 years old by the hand. Alpha, as you requested, I found a suitable orphan from the Northern Ridge Pack, she announced. Chloe was a newly integrated Omega in the Storm Pack. She was beautiful with a perfect figure and an engaging personality. During pack gatherings, she always managed to capture everyone's attention with her stories. The boy behind her had dark hair and bright eyes. He looked healthy and strong, perfect future pack material. Blake's expression shifted when he saw Chloe. He greeted her with a cool nod before turning to me with tender eyes. "Little wolf," he said softly, "this is the pup I was telling you about. Since we can't have our own children now, I searched the neighboring packs for an orphan we could adopt." He beckoned to the boy. "Come here, little one. Say hello to your new mom." The boy looked confused. Instead of approaching me, he hugged Chloe's legs tightly. "Mommy," he whimpered, looking up at her with Blake's eyes, "why is Daddy asking me to call someone else Mom?" The room went deadly silent. Blake's face paled. He cleared his throat. He's confused. I've been visiting him at the orphanage for weeks now. He's started calling me Dad because I've been taking care of him." Chloe nodded quickly. "Children get attached easily. I've been helping with his care too." The lies were so transparent it was almost laughable. I couldn't bear to watch this performance any longer. "I'm tired," I said flatly, turning away from them. "I need to rest." Blake nodded, relief evident in his eyes. "Of course, love. You need your strength." He motioned to one of the pack members standing guard outside. "Take the boy to the guest quarters." The guard led the confused child away, but Chloe remained, hovering at the edge of the room. I lay with my back to them, pretending to drift off to sleep. Behind me, I could hear Chloe moving closer to Blake. Her scent, wild berries and something distinctly feline, grew stronger. "She doesn't suspect anything," Chloe whispered, her voice playful. "Are you insane?" Blake hissed back. "That was incredibly reckless. What were you thinking bringing him here?" "Relax," Chloe teased, and I could hear the rustle of fabric as she moved against him. "She's completely clueless. Besides, I put sleeping herbs in her water. She'll be out cold any minute now." Chloe was deliberately brushing her leg against Blake's in a subtle, intimate gesture. Blake didn't reject her advance. He allowed the contact until she became more obvious. Only then did he reach down to grasp her thigh, halting her provocative movements. But Chloe wasn't deterred. She moved behind Blake and embraced him, nuzzling against him like a contented wolf after a successful hunt. Blake instinctively glanced my way, confirming the sleeping herbs had taken effect. Seeing my eyes closed and my breathing steady, he immediately grew bolder, turning to press Chloe against the nearby table, his hand firmly gripping her throat as his lips crashed against hers. He pulled away quickly, his cold gaze warning her to behave herself. But Chloe showed no fear. She wrapped herself around him again, pushing him down onto my bed, just inches from where I lay. They didn't realize that although my body couldn't move, my mind remained perfectly alert. Blake flipped their positions, pinning Chloe beneath him. "Have you lost your mind?" he growled. "I've warned you to behave yourself around Amber. She is my only Luna." Chloe smiled seductively, deliberately exposing her neck to him in invitation. "Don't you want to see what it's like?" she whispered. "Taking me here, in her bed. Am I more exciting to you than she is?" Blake's laugh was cold and dismissive. "You're nothing compared to her." But his eyes darkened as they fixated on Chloe's exposed skin, his body betraying his words. Chloe pressed herself against him. "You've been so busy with her these past days. Both your son and I have missed you." Blake's restraint finally shattered. One hand roughly explored Chloe's body while the other pushed her legs apart. I could hear Chloe's breathless gasps filling the room. My heart felt as if it had been violently torn in two, the pain unbearable. The man who had sworn he loved only me, who promised to cherish me alone for all our days, was now with another woman in my own bed, thinking I was asleep beside them. When the sleeping herbs wore off and I fully awoke, Blake was gone. Instead, Chloe stood at the foot of my bed, her face dark with resentment. There was no respect in her expression as she looked down at me with contempt. "You saw everything that happened earlier, didn't you?" she taunted. "Blake loves me, not you. We already have a 3-year-old son together. He promised our boy would be his heir." I clenched my fists, trembling as I asked, "How long have you two been together?" Chloe held up 4 fingers, her face smug with triumph. 4 years, she boasted. He met me at a pack gathering 4 years ago and fell for me instantly. The very first night, he couldn't get enough of me. She continued. Afterward, he felt guilty about betraying you, which is why he transferred all his assets to your name. Those belongings were meant for me and our son. You stole what was rightfully ours. I bit my lip hard, suppressing the urge to attack her where she stood. Seeing my restraint, Chloe grew even bolder. Do you actually believe he loves you? She sneered. Every night after you fall asleep, he comes to me. Even when I was pregnant, he wouldn't leave me alone. Let me tell you something, that day of the rogue wolf attack, he wasn't patrolling the border as he claimed. He went into rogue territory to rescue me and our son. She let out a smug smile. When you were captured by those rogues, he was escorting us back to safety. While you were being beaten and losing your baby, Blake was in bed with me. He can't live without me now. If you're smart, you should sever the mate bond immediately. Her words brought back memories of that terrible day. I'd heard Blake was patrolling the border when he was captured by rogue wolves. Without hesitation, I rushed to the border to protect him. When I reached rogue territory, he was nowhere to be found. Instead, I was surrounded by a pack of rogues, severely injured, and lost my baby. I nearly died. My wolf form had gone into healing hibernation from the injuries. I desperately called Blake for help, phoning him more than a dozen times with no answer. Eventually, his phone was switched off completely. The next day when he returned, he knelt by my bedside, claiming he'd been at a pack negotiation and hated himself for not being there when I needed him. He even slapped himself repeatedly as punishment for his failure. But the truth was that while I was in agony, nearly dying, he was enjoying himself with another woman. The last shred of hope I'd been clinging to vanished in that moment. My heart turned to ashes. Seeing my defeated expression, Chloe grew even more smug. She placed her hands on her hips and announced, "Tomorrow is my son's 3rd birthday. Blake is hosting a grand celebration to declare my boy as the pack's heir." She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a vicious whisper. "He'll also acknowledge me as the new ranking female. Your replacement." Her eyes gleamed with malice as she straightened up. "Looking forward to seeing you at the celebration." With that, she left the room with her chin held high, every step radiating triumph. As I watched her triumphant departure, sharp pain stabbed at my chest. The next moment, everything went dark as I collapsed. When I woke, it was already the next morning. The first thing I saw was Blake sitting beside me, his eyes bloodshot and swollen. His usually immaculate hair was disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it all night. He immediately pulled me into his arms, his voice breaking as he spoke. "Amber, you're finally awake," he choked out, burying his face in my hair. "Your heart stopped twice during the night. I thought I was going to lose you." The image of him with Chloe flashed through my mind, making me feel sick. I pushed him away. "I'm fine." Blake froze, his arms still outstretched. A flash of hurt crossed his face, followed by confusion. "What's wrong? Are you in pain? Should I call Nathan?" I stared at him, searching for any sign of guilt in those amber eyes I'd once trusted completely. Looking at his tear-filled eyes, I asked the question that had been burning in my heart. "Do you remember what I told you before our mating ceremony?" Before we were mated, I had told him that if he ever fell in love with someone else, he should tell me outright. I would step aside for the other woman. But if he ever deceived me, I would vanish from his life forever. A flicker of panic crossed Blake's eyes, but he quickly composed himself. "I will only ever love you in this lifetime," he declared firmly. "Why would you ask such a thing?" He pressed, studying my face. "Has someone been filling your head with lies?" I pulled my hand away. "I'm just tired." Blake stared at me for a long moment before standing abruptly. "Get dressed. I have something to show you." Though weak, I allowed him to help me up. He wrapped a thick blanket around my shoulders and led me through the corridors of the healing den. As we stepped outside onto the grounds, I gasped at what awaited us. There, gleaming in the morning sun on the wide grassy clearing, sat an elegant private aircraft. Blake looked at me with affection shining in his eyes. "You've always said you wanted to travel the world, but I was always too busy with pack duties. I've arranged everything." Blake's arm tightened around my waist. In 1 month, when you're fully recovered, I'll hand over temporary leadership to the pack council. For 3 months, we'll go wherever you want. Just you and me. His voice dropped lower, for my ears only. No pack duties. No interruptions, just us, rebuilding what we've lost. By now, wolves from all over the pack had gathered, drawn by the commotion and the sight of their alpha and his mate. Alpha Blake really does love Luna Amber, someone whispered in awe. Such a grand gesture, another murmured. I've never seen a male so devoted. From the corner of my eye, I spotted Chloe pushing through the crowd. Chloe smiled serenely. Yes, Alpha loves Luna the most, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Luna, don't worry. Alpha only has you in his heart. What should have been compliments rang in my ears as mockery. I gave a bitter smile and gestured for all the women to leave. After his display of proving his innocence, Blake seemed more at ease. He sat on the edge of the bed and took my hand in his expression earnest. Amber, you know that I only love you in this lifetime. My heart could never belong to another woman. I responded with a faint hum, ignoring the disappointment in his eyes as I pulled my hand away. A moment later, Blake seemed to remember something and added. Amber, I need to travel to the Northern Territory tomorrow, so I can't stay with you. But my phone will be on for you 24 hours a day. If you miss me, just call. His declaration of devotion seemed so genuine, without a trace of deceit. I pushed down the discomfort rising in my chest and nodded. Be careful on your journey. I clearly caught the flash of guilt in his eyes before he spoke in a slightly wounded tone. I hate leaving you, though. Even though it's just for a day, I don't want to be apart from you for even a minute. Once I finish all my work this month, I'll spend 3 full months just with you. No pack business, no distractions. If I didn't know he was going to host a celebration for his illegitimate son during those 7 days, I might have been moved by his words. Finally, Blake reluctantly kissed my forehead and left the room. The moment he walked out, I left the healing den. I returned to our home to gather my essentials, then submitted my formal request to the Alpha Council to sever our mate bond. After that, I boarded a ship bound for the hunter packs in Europe. Before getting on the vessel, I deleted Blake's contact information from my phone and blocked him everywhere, saying a final goodbye to the life we had shared. Sitting on the deck of the ship, I watched through the window as the territory where I had lived for more than 30 years grew smaller and smaller. The heavy stone that had been pressing on my heart finally began to dissolve. Blake, goodbye forever. The next morning, I arrived safely at the hunter pack territory. Using my exceptional healing crystal design skills, I opened a small shop near their central grounds. Meanwhile, Blake was presenting his alpha heir and new ranking female to the storm pack. Just before stepping into the grand hall for the celebration, he paused to ask the healer about my condition. The healer assured him that I had been sleeping soundly since his departure. They told him not to disturb me and promised to call when I woke up. Satisfied with this report, Blake finally entered the hall to begin the ceremony. Yet somehow, he couldn't shake my image from his mind. The previous night, he'd even dreamed that I asked him for severing the mate bond. The nightmare had jolted him awake, and he'd immediately called the healer to confirm I was still sleeping before his racing heart could calm. But this uneasiness remained with Blake, growing stronger as the hours passed. His mind kept drifting to distant thoughts. When a pack elder asked when he would hold the marking ceremony with Chloe, he didn't even hear the question. It took Chloe shaking his arm to bring him back to reality. When he looked into her eyes, full of adoration, all he could see instead was my face filled with disappointment looking back at him. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He jerked his hand away from Chloe's grasp and ran toward the entrance of the ceremonial hall. Alpha Blake, the celebration isn't over. Where are you going? A pack member called after him. Only now did he understand how important I truly was to him. How could he have betrayed me by taking another female? Amber, please wait for me. Blake raced back to the healing den, heart pounding wildly in his chest. After parking haphazardly outside, he sprinted through the corridors toward my room. Only when he glimpsed through the doorway and saw the shape still lying in bed, covers pulled up, did his panic slightly subside. He pushed open the door and walked in, a tender smile spreading across his face. Love, I'm back. He called softly. The figure in the bed didn't respond. Blake carefully pulled back the blanket, his smile freezing instantly when he discovered not me, but a collection of pillows arranged to resemble a sleeping form. Where was his